What's up, nerds, and welcome back to the Helpline Nerds Podcast. Today we're reviewing Spider-Noir Season 1, and we're going to start off, as always, with a spoiler-free review. So if you haven't seen it yet, you don't have to click off. Woohoo! But when we get to the spoiler part, we'll give you a countdown, and then you'll know to click off. And then we're going to take that episode by episode so we can look at each individual episode and talk about what we liked, what we didn't. And then we'll give you our final thoughts and close it out with that. Let us know in the comments what you did think of Spider-Noir if you've seen it, and if you haven't, go and watch it, and then let us know. But with that being said, let's get into it. So, Spider-Noir, it's one of the freshest takes in Spider-Man that I've seen in a while, and to be honest, I think this is what Sony should have been doing rather than trying to do the Venomverse with the villains. I feel like this is a way to have your cake and eat it too, in a way, if that makes sense. I feel like Nick Cage's performance, coupled with the fact that this being a different universe, means that you can do your own thing without stepping on the toes of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, does mean that this is what Sony could have been doing the whole time. And it doesn't have to have just been this. We could have had this with Garfield's and Tobey's Spider-Man, because they are other Spider-Men in the universe. And I feel like that's what they should have been doing, using the Spider-Verse. And I don't think I'm alone in that. As well, I think that if you're going to be watching this, you need to watch it in black and white. It is a noir, and noirs tend to be better in black and white. Take Sin City, for example. That is in black and white, and it works perfectly for that setting. There's also the fact that you've got Werewolf by Night. You can watch that in colour as well, but again, recommend not doing that. It just adds to the ambience. That was the word I was looking for, ambience, of the entire production, to have it in black and white and everything. And I thought it added to the creep factor of Spider-Noir, and like what it would be like to be part spider. So I do think that definitely did something. I also thought some of the creative choices with the cinematography were refreshing as well. There's scenes in episode 1 where we're getting some of his backstory, and the way that they portray it is very clever. And there's some scenes in the climactic scene between two characters, the way that that's portrayed, and we'll get to it when we get into the spoiler part, that is very beautiful as well. Some of the cuts between two scenes, between Silvermane and the Man, that was really done really well, and we'll get to that when we get to episode 7. I just think some of the cinematography was really, really well, and I can't really talk about it fully without like spoiling what I'm talking about, but I do think that that was a very niche way of doing it, and I think it added to the film and everything like that. Also, the opening song, that got me hyped for every individual episode. Usually I skip opening songs, but I didn't for the first episode and the last episode, because I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good opener for Spider-Man Noir, or Spider-Noir as it's called on Prime. And the only reason I skipped it for the other episodes is because I wanted to get as much of it watched for you guys as I possibly could. Otherwise, I would watch it for, the entire series. But that being said, I do think that everything that we got was genuine fun. I have seen some criticisms that Cage's interpretation of Spider-Noir is overly comedic, whereas in the comics it's very serious. I've not actually read Spider-Noir, so I can't comment on that, and I wouldn't feel qualified to do so. If you have read Spider-Noir, let me know in the comments if you agree with that take, and everything like that. But for me, I don't think it took anything away from it. I thought it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, and I thought it was very Spider-Man to me, like the tongue-in-cheek banter that he was giving. But if that's not the characterization of Noir, then maybe they're going for something different. I'm not sure. There was a lot of stuff there that I did enjoy with it. I The main thing, without being like spoilery, is the whole how they used Spider-Man. So he's not overused. I know I'm rambling a little bit, and I tend to in these spoiler-free bits because I try not to step onto spoilers. So it's how they use him. He's not overused. He's used in a couple of scenes, and it, but it still feels like a detective noir. And the rogues and the references, we don't get rogue names until the final two, the final episode. No one's actually given a name, but like until the end of the show, except for Nicolas Cage's The Spider, and then but they are, you can clearly, if you're a Spider-Man fan, pinpoint who people are supposed to be, because you have characters like Cat Hardy, who clearly, if you are a Spider-Man fan, would be Felicia Hardy, aka the Black Cat. And then you would have Flint Marko, which, if you're a Spider-Man fan, you would know as Sandman, or even if you're just a casual movie watcher that watched the Sam Raimi trilogy, you would know the name Flint Marko as Sandman. Then there's Lonnie Lincoln, aka Tombstone. There's other characters that show up which don't exactly have their names, but you see their power set and you know who they're homaging. And I do think it's clever. So with that, I don't really think there's much more spoiler free we can really get into without like breaking everything. I think there's just enough spider elements for it to feel Spider-Man, but still feel fresh. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. I think they definitely keep the framework of the time period that they're set in, the 1930s. More so when we're focusing on Robbie than when we're focusing on Ben. But there is a little bit of issue. I wouldn't say issue, but there is a little bit of discrepancy there. It's there, but it's not there, if that makes any sense. And I'll get into that when I can talk about it more in depth. And yeah, I think that basically it's it's fun. It's a good fresh take, and I think Sony needs to look at this as their flagship and be like, we need to do more like this, because I would like to see more of Spider-Noir's universe, and then maybe go to 2099 and get like Miguel O'Hara and Alchemax and all that stuff, because they could quite easily do that. Or we can jump into Miles Morales. I know we're doing it with the Into the Spider-Verse cartoons, but Miles Morales' universe would be fun as a live action. They could have been doing that the whole time. We could have also been getting like Penny Parker. These are things that are completely different from the main MCU Spider-Man that would have been able for Sony to build their own Spider-Verse multi-universe like Marvel did, but without stepping on the Tom Holland MCU train. And not that I'm bagging on Venom. Venom was actually good, but then we got some lackluster films in Morbius. I don't think Craven was as bad, but it's still not up there. And then you have the god-awful movie that was Madam Web. So if they'd have been focusing more on things like this, I think we would have had a thing. But that's my spoiler-free review, so I'll give you a 5-second countdown to click off if you haven't seen the show at all. I know that was a bit disjointed and a bit like da-da-da, but I'm not very good at not spoiling stuff, so with that being said, let's move on to spoilers. in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, episode 1. So what I was talking about when it came to cinematography, when he's giving his whole Tobey Maguire-esque, are you sure you want to know kind of speech where we get the someone asked me what kind of what universe this was once. Thought it was odd because this is the only one I've ever known thing, which is a good way to tell us that this isn't the same Spider-Noir from the Into the Spider-Verse movies, because he would know multiple universes, for anyone that didn't catch that. We get this whole thing of him showing us him growing up in New York, and I loved the whole stained glass windows, flashes of his life, cinematography. That was absolutely beautiful and fantastic way to do it. I Editor me will have put it up on screen for those of you that are watching on YouTube, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. It was absolutely gorgeous. I thought it worked. I bet it was vibrant in color, but in black and white, it was chef's kiss. I just think it added something to it, and it makes you get Ben in a way that's quick and doesn't overtake the narrative, because we get like this little speech, but it's not just telling us, they're also showing us. So it's like that constant battle that we always get in TV and movies, show don't tell. Well, they're doing both at the same time. Ben is telling us, but the screen is showing us, and it's showing us in a clever way as he's swinging and walking through the city, as he gives up being the spider following the death of Ruby, which seems to fill the role of both Uncle Ben and Gwen Stacy, because she's his partner, but she also gave him the "with great power comes great responsibility" speech. So she fits the Uncle Ben trope, but also fits the Gwen Stacy trope, which she kind of fits to use into the across the Spider-Verse wording. She's both canon events, which is odd. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I do like that this episode, it focuses mainly on his PI work and him working as a private investigator. And we get hints to him being the spider, and obviously there are flash Easter eggs and details that are thrown in if you know what you're looking for, with things like obviously his name being Ben Reilly. That's the name of the clone in Saga, which is loved or hated. It's like Marmite, usually hated, but Ben Reilly is Peter Parker's clone, taking the name Ben Reilly because Ben is Uncle Ben's name, obviously, and Reilly is Aunt May's maiden name, aka Ben Reilly. So we learn that, so that's where that name comes from. So that's a nice little Easter egg that they've chosen to have that be his name. And we will learn later on down the road in a blink and you'll miss it comment by Freckles that Ben changed his name post World War One. So it's implied, well, not right outright stated, that his name may have been Peter Parker, and then he changed his name to Ben Reilly. Because in their conversation, Freckles turns around to him and says, "I would have found you sooner had you not changed your name." So there's that. I do like that little detail. And with the comic knowledge of Ben Reilly being a combination of Uncle Ben and Aunt May, it does bode well for that being still the case. So that's just my interpretation of that. Let me know if you caught that little line there, or if I misheard him or anything, but I did kind of catch that, and I'm not sure if I was just seeing things. I do like that the mystery gets started here, and I think it's handled perfectly. It's not over the top, and we start to see that there are some more things going on with everything at large. Obviously, he tries to blackmail Kat with the photos, and that's when he gets in a fight with Flint, and Flint starts sanding out, and it's treated very tragically when he starts sanding out, as opposed to triumphantly, uh, and I like this. I think it gives very Clayface, very tragic moment, especially with the fact that it all starts on his face and he like turns away from Cat and everything like that. Does give me Clayface vibes from DC Comics and everything like that. Let me know if you agree with that. I might be reaching again with that, but that is what I do like that there. So. And for me, starting off the series, the standout character has got to be his assistant. A name escapes my brain at the moment. I'll put it up on screen or in the description. But his assistant is the standout character for me throughout the entire series. Whenever she's on screen, she steals the show, and she's just like a hoot. I like the fact that she teaches the kid that helps him out sometimes. I like the fact that she calls him out later on in the show when he accidentally reveals he's the spider. I like the fact that she points out that he's done it multiple times. I know I'm jumping ahead there, but it's just she's the best character, seconded by Robbie, and then it's Nicolas Cage's Spider. In my opinion, those are my top three. But for me, it will always be the assistant at the top. Ah, best character for me, and I can't believe a name's gone out of my head. I That's what you get when you're writing notes in a hurry and you miss the name when they first say it, so you write assistant in your notes. And now that's all you've got written down. Whoops. Oh well, that's my fault. Anyway, moving on to episode 2, the noir vibes still lock in, and this is why I say you should definitely keep it in black and white. I feel like they keep the noir style and vibe check and everything like that, and keeping the investigation there was really cool. And then having Kat come in looking to hire him as a PI to find Flint after he ran off after their confrontation. That was cool. I also like that they used Cat Hardy or Black Cat as the femme fatale that you get in these like 30s noir detective stories. It fits Felicia's vibe. It fits like Black Cat. I also like the fact that her name is Cat Hardy, so instead of Felicia Hardy, so they're not just giving you like her name in the comics. They're telling you this is Cat, like this is Black Cat. It's really cool. I do also like the fact that everything ties back to the war, like Lonnie Lincoln, Flint Marco, Addison, and Layden all together. I do like that they were all in the army and that all builds together to create something bigger of a mystery, because it's like, what is the connection? Especially when Robbie starts talking to Ben about it and acting like there is some sort of connection between Ben and this whole thing, which we will eventually find out later, but it does start to tell you that there's something bigger going on behind the scenes. Robbie also starts to shine here as he shows how he's learning as we start to learn the realities of his character in this time period, and it adds depth and not just drama, because the thing is, having Robbie Robertson be one of the 3 main characters in this time period is a choice. Like, they could have gone with anybody else in this time period to do. We've got Rob. If you go by Harry, if you go by Peter's friends or Ben's friends for this show, You could have gone with Robbie Robertson. You could have gone with Harry Osborn. I know I'm going off thingy, and I've not read Spider-Noir, so it might be the same in Spider-Noir. It might be Robbie Robertson in there. But I'm just saying, how even if it's the same in the comics, they've done the same thing. They've chosen this on purpose. Because you could have had Harry Osborn, you could have had Flash Thompson, who I know starts out as a bully for Peter in the main universe, but you could have still done it this way, especially seeing as though in the comics he is a soldier. And then you could have literally gone any other way, but they specifically go with Robbie Robertson in the 1930s. So they go with a black man in the 1930s. That's going to add some weight to it because you have to show, if you're going to do it as a comic book or as a TV show, you have to show the realities of what it would have been like working and living in that time period. When he goes to investigate Addison and gets caught up in the police raid, they don't care that he's there as a journalist. If he'd have been, and I don't feel like I'm speculating here, if he'd have been white and he'd have said that he worked for the Bugle, I don't feel like that police officer would have gone to smack him with the billy club. But because he wasn't, he was going to get taken out just the same as everybody else in that camp. Because they didn't care. They were just doing what they were doing. And I feel like that's the thing. There's also a scene where he goes to see Addison's widow and he has to sneak in through the back because the club is whites only and the sign is prominent on the scene. You also see the train ride when he gets on the train. It's still segregated and everything like that. Now, there are some scenes where it's a bit ambiguous as to how he got into certain places, but you have to let it slide through TV logic. Just because they're building it up to be like realistic, and then he's doing certain things that probably wouldn't be able to do, but it's a TV show, so they're obviously picking and choosing what they're going for and what they're not. But hey ho. And when we do get to see Spidey in action, when he takes down Silvermane, I think that was fun. Not over the top, not like super action packed, not like Daredevil Born Again level choreography or Arrow Season 1 choreography, but still fun. And still like what you'd expect from an experienced Spidey, or Spider in this case. And I do think that it's very telling that he's been out of the game, but he still knows what he's doing. And I like how the spider sense comes from the back of the neck, like the hairs are standing up on the back of his neck and letting him know something's wrong. Like every time we see that spider sense, I do like how they use that. I also like that Spider-Noir, clearly, unlike other Spider-Men, doesn't have any qualm of threatening to kill people. Like, I can't see Peter from the MCU or Spider-Man from the 90s cartoon threatening to murk someone because they crossed him in his daily life. Now, I also can't really see Spider-Man doing it in the comics, but then again, he does hang people off the edge of a building, and he did once grab Kingpin by the titty because Aunt May got shot. So there is precedent for Peter, losing his temper a little bit in the comics and threatening people. So that's why I didn't mention the comics, but I can't picture, like, the regular ones from live action doing that, whereas Spider-Man Noir has no qualm doing it at all. And I'm here for that. I like that. I like that a lot. I do like the fact that when he goes for his sit down with Silvermane, to be fair, he could have took Silvermane out there and then. And that probably would have ended a lot of stuff. He could have webbed him up and the police could have arrived. But he didn't, and he just told him to lay off Ben Reilly. Now, that was clever, and I thought that it was a good way of showing intimidation, while also showing that Ben kind of has an in with the spider, so leave him alone. I do like that and think that was clever. So, I also think that it was a good way to set up it coming back to bite him in the ass by the end of the show. For episode 3, the twist that the episode starts with Silvermane then wanting to hire Ben because the spider literally went out of his way to threaten him was not something I saw coming, especially because we know that he's been having money trouble over the past 2 episodes, and every time he gets given money, he keeps giving it away, which almost led to his assistant quitting, especially after she was threatened by Silvermane's goons. But it was really fun for Silvermane to just walk in, make his goons apologize to the assistant, and then go in and hire Ben, and her be like, "Oh, so that's how you sorted it. We work for Silvermane now." That was clever. Especially with what we learn later with her actually knowing he's the spider, because she'll know what he actually did to sort it. But that's funny. I also like the Chekhov's gun that they sell off at the beginning of that episode with the marked bills. We know that that's got to come back by the end of the episode, but we don't know how they're going to do it. With him noticing it and noticing the pattern, you can see that they're setting it up. It's going to be the Chekhov's gun that gets the mole, but how does it play out? I'm not really sure at the beginning of the episode. And then the clues start to point to Cat being the mole and being the one that's setting up Silvermane. And when we find out why Cat is setting up Silvermane, yeah, justifiable. He had her ex killed because she was falling for him, and he wanted to make it clear that she belonged to him and only him, and she had to stay with him, and he could kill anyone that she wants, no matter what. Yeah, that didn't really feel that bad or evil until you realize, not that it's not evil, but what I'm saying is it didn't feel that she wasn't on board, because she stuck around and she didn't try and kill Silvermane straight away, until you realize that Kat was probably planning something like this in the background of her mind until all the time, especially when she realized that Flint was going to die and or Flint was sick and needed help. And so she started using people. But that's the catch-22. She started using other people the same way Silvermane was using her. And I feel like that's why I'm saying what he did was wrong, and he killed someone that she cared about. But she killed someone Flint cared about by trying to get at Silvermane. And that's the issue here. She only cared about herself and Flint, and she's put so many more people in jeopardy. Flint's friend Addison, Ben, and Ben's assistant, the other PI that got killed. So, in the episode 1, and the cops that got injured in that comedic scene where he's going through to find out everything he can about who gave the order, which was the mayor. So I don't really root for Cat, but I don't root for Silvermane either. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I ended up saying that what Silvermane did wasn't that bad, but what I'm actually trying to say is that in the grand scheme of things, what Cat did wasn't justified, because she ended up hurting just as many, if not more people in the process of trying to save someone than what Silvermane did to her. That's what I'm trying to say. And I don't think I said it properly. But hopefully I got my point across now, that I've explained it better. It does show that Kat is morally grey rather than this straight up victim. And I do feel like that's something that we really needed to see, because Kat in the comics is also morally grey. She steals, but she usually steals from very, very rich and uh, corrupt individuals, or at least she does after meeting Spidey. So when she tries to go straight, she does, at least. Also, I do like the tombstone reveal. I knew who he was by the name Lonnie Lincoln, but I do like the whole shifting. At first, before they said his name, I wasn't sure if he was Tombstone or Rhino because of how his appearance looks, but because usually Tombstone is an albino individual with rock hard concrete like skin, not that like padded armor over his skin. But I do like what they did there. It was clever, and yeah, I thought that maybe they might have been going Rhino with that, but no, it was fun with what they did go with. And the fact that he did turn out to be Lonnie Lincoln did give me hope, although I don't think they're going that route, that when Silvermane fell down, Lonnie might take over as the big man, but I don't think they're going with that route at all. And I do wonder who will take over Silvermane's operation. I also like that. Also, I like that. I don't like it for Robbie, but I like that Robbie's article got altered because it felt like very, very topical, is what I'm trying to say. It felt very relevant, even though the period of time that it's set in is the 1930s. This felt very topical about agenda pushing. Obviously, the Bugle was trying to push an agenda that Lonnie and Flint were monsters. So the big corporation of the Bugle, the editor-in-chief, changed Robbie's article to paint them the way that they wanted them painted, which isn't exactly what Robbie had in mind. Now, I feel like that happens a lot nowadays to get the viewpoint of the big conglomerate or the person that's paying for the main media station or anything like that out to the general public. And that's why you can't really trust these big media companies anymore. And so that's why I'm saying I felt like this was very topical. And it's not something I really talk about on here a lot, but I do think that this was very political and very topical for the time period and still relevant today. Yeah. On to episode 4, I think this is when things start to crack because after Ben pulls off his big gambit and we get the whole he set up Silvermane's right hand so that Cat didn't get found out as the mole, and Silvermane's right hand gets shot, and we end on that cliffhanger, and then the others get shot and they get dug in graves and everything like that. Silvermane is kind of on a fence, a tightrope with Ben and Kat. He seems calm at the beginning of the episode, but the questions he's asking throughout the episode about Ben and Kat gives me the vibe that while he knows them, he doesn't, like, while he understands what they did and he seemingly trusts them, he doesn't trust them, and he doesn't trust anybody, and he's starting to question Kat's loyalty, and he's looking for the crack in Ben's story. And I feel like that's where things start to get dangerous. Robbie's B plot starts picking up momentum here, especially when we start to see how veterans post World War One, specifically black veterans, were treated. When we go to Harlem and we see how they were treated, and the fact that the majority of them needed to use like soup kitchens to be fed and things like that. It was actually kind of heartbreaking to see that scene, but if you look it up and stuff like that, it's all historical fact. None of it was made up for fiction or anything like that. You can see the inspirations that they were pulling from. Again, it's surface level, I think, but that wasn't really the story they were trying to tell. So I can see why they didn't fully dive into it, and but it does add something to the world building and let you know that they haven't forgot what time period they're in and the struggles that would be there for people like Robbie, Lonnie, and other characters that we may yet meet. But that's really all we really get from that. And we do find out where Lonnie and Flint have been hiding, and Robbie does get to kind of explain what happened to Lonnie, which I do like. I do like that Robbie gets to explain himself to Lonnie because my favorite interpretation of Lonnie Lincoln is the one from the 90s Spider-Man cartoon where Lonnie Lincoln and Robbie Robertson are best friends before he becomes Tombstone. So I do like that they kind of gave them a dynamic in Spider-Noir because it fits with the way that I like Tombstone and Robbie to be bounced off each other. I do like that more than what we've got. But that's by the by. And I do love the whole the assistant teaching the kid to read, write, and everything, and they call back to the goons breaking the desk. And I think I jumped the gun with Cat's backstory. Yeah, I did. I don't know why I thought Cat's backstory was in episode 3. Yeah, and I have no idea. It's just we find out about the tragic love story between her and Flint in episode 3. But Kat's tragic backstory with Tom the dentist is actually in episode 4. So everything I said about that is for episode 4, not 3. But it still applies. I just got the wrong episode. I don't know why. I'm looking at my notes and hey, oh well. I do like that we get it revealed that their powers. So Lonnie's, Addison's, Layden's, and when we meet Layden in a couple of scenes actually, and Flint, they all come from German experiments during the World War One, and from when they were POWs, and learning about that and the fact that it all comes from that, it's wild because it's not usually how they get their powers. If you look at Spider-Man mythos, they all get their powers in vastly different ways, and stuff like that. But this connection between them kind of builds the world around the fact that we're set in the 1930s. This is one of the main ways that people, especially in comic books, mainly in comic books, would get powers. I said especially in comic books because you see it in TV and movies as well. But it's mainly comic books. And then right at the end, we start to see that Silvermane is starting to look weak and power seems to be shifting between him and the mayor because of the fact that the mayor is openly defying him with the police chief not showing up earlier in the episode to a meeting he was supposed to have with Silvermane, and then having lunch without him, a gala, and Flint, who is now heartbroken because he saw Kat and Ben together out of context, but still saw them together, working for Silvermane, breaks the table and tries to intimidate them, which doesn't really work for the mayor, but I think it worked for the police chief. And then we get the scene between Electro and Spidey, or the Spider, and I think that was cool because this time it's the first public fight between the Spider and a villain, because for the Silvermane fight, that happened in an abandoned street, whereas this is happening in public. Everyone can see. Everyone can see the spider is back, quote unquote, and they can see that he's fighting a supervillain, and he manages to win, and Layden is taken to prison or jail. And then Kat, being there, I think because just before she was with Ben and they almost kissed, she recognizes something about the spider, which I pinpointed the exact moment she cottoned on, and runs back to his apartment where he's there. And Gwen Stacy's herself out of the window. They knew what they were doing when they had him web her in two separate spots to save her. They were making an homage to The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And that, but especially when they literally show her dangling, her neck flies back and then she bounces back up. It looked almost identical, apart from the fact that she's not dead, to the Gwen Stacy fall in TISM 2. And the fact that it happened straight after a fight with Electro. Coincidence? I think not. So, that's all I can say on that, really. They knew what they were doing there, and they knew what they were going to evoke. And I think it was very clever of them. Then we move on to episode 5, and we get the whole big reveal of Ben and his powers, and he literally saved his rogues. He saved Flint, Addison, Layden, and everybody, really. He saved them all. He saved and Lonnie. I don't know why Lonnie's name went out, man. He saved them all from the POW camp, and while he was there was a man spider who bit him. So he wasn't bit by a regular spider, he was bit by a man spider, and that gave him his spider powers. I thought that was a cool twist. Rather than him being bit by a regular spider, he got bit by a guy that was half man, half spider. So that's probably why his mutation is stable and theirs isn't, because he got bit by someone whose mutation already wasn't stable, so it transferred to him in a different way. I thought that was very clever. I also liked how it ties everyone together and ties back to what Robbie said when he was bringing up the fact that they were in a POW camp, because he will have known how Ben got his powers with them being friends and everything. I also like the fact that when he comes back from his little date and explaining everything to Kat, Robbie and his assistant start telling him about the doctor and everything that they learned from Lonnie, and he's like, well, what are we doing sitting here? And to be honest, if I'm being honest, I was sat there thinking Robbie and the assistant are better at his job than Ben is, because Ben is just out here trying to get with Kat. And it felt pretty cool, if I'm being honest. And then we pan to Silvermane, who's picked up Sandman. Now he's gone for Lonnie, and he wants them to go after the Electro guy from the end of the last episode, Layden. And, it feels like Silvermane saw these guys and thought, let's build my own version of the Sinister Six. Not that he would know what the Sinister Six is, but it does feel like Silvermane is building the Noir Six. So that's all I kept thinking. It's like, are we gonna find 3 others and he's gonna build the Sinister Six? Because this was really weird and really clever of Silvermane. And then we pan to the doctor and everything, and we get what she's actually looking into. And the whole thing is she's trying to find a cure for them, but she's not fixing them, she's making them worse. So her cure is actually accelerating the mutation, and that's interesting. It feels like very X-Men-y, but in a Spider-Man project. And as a massive X-Men fan, I love the fact that they've done this. I love the whole cure plot line. It feels very If you've seen Spectacular Spider-Man and you're a Spider-Man fan, so I'm assuming you probably did, it feels a lot like the Gene Cleanser arc that we get, or if you've seen, and we'll get to it when we get to it, there's a whole thing that I want to talk about when we get to the whole weird thingy. And then everything is thingy. And of course, the episode ends with a betrayal. We knew it was coming because the episode was called Betrayal. And so if you pay attention to the episode titles, which I do, it's kind of my job to review them for you guys. So if you pay the attention to the episode titles, you knew there was a betrayal coming, and it was literally going to either be Flint betrays Silvermane or Cat betrays Ben. And of course, it's Cat betrays Ben by choosing Flint and tracking down the Doctor, and that revealing he is the Spider and the answer to her prayers to save everybody, or so we think. And that's where we pan to episode 6. And this is the episode that gets kind of trippy, kind of weird in a very psychological horror way, because this is the episode where Ben meets Freckles, or as I like to call him, Vulture Light, because he has an aging disorder where he ages down. That's his. He ages up, and he wants to age back to his regular age. That feels very Adrian Toomes, comics-wise and cartoons-wise. It's not the Adrian Toomes we got from the movies, but it is the Adrian Toomes that I know and love from comics and movies, with like aging and stuff like that. So he did feel very Vulture to me. Let me know if you agree with me. And turns out he's actually the Doctor's son, and they kidnap Ben when Ben says that he's leaving with Cat and sorry, but not sorry, which wasn't very heroic or great power of you, Ben, but hey ho, we'll let it slide. And she starts taking Ben's blood, realizing there's nothing there, and then operating on Ben and taking liver cultures from him, to which she finds a cure. And this is what I wanted to talk about. This feels very Tism 2 as well, with the cure to an illness being from the spider, with the fact that the cure, or Harry's believed cure, coming from Spider-Man. It turns out it's not. It actually accelerates and worsens his mutation, but he believes that the spider is the whole cure to him. And it does feel like they're drawing a lot of parallels from TASM 2 and kind of fixing it in a way. And we'll get to that at the end of the whole thing. But I do like the whole psyche thing when he's on the operating table and he's been drugged, and we see like the spiders crawling out of his body, and then the whole seeing people, seeing Ruby again, and then she peels back her face and becomes the spider. They have that whole existential monologue between themselves about how he can't get rid of the spider and everything like that. We find out the military also did experiments on him. That was clever. And then we get the cure, like I said, which does feel very Gene Cleanser-y and all that. The Doctor becomes completely unhinged. She claims that she was trying to help all the POWs, but it's very obvious that it's not about them. It was literally just about Freckles. She was just trying to cure her son, and then she was going to kill Ben and fuck everybody else, basically. She didn't care about them. She only cared about Freckles, and yeah, she's a mother, so you can't blame her, but still, what an asshole move. Like, everybody else is okay to die. Like, you can see that Freckles is not okay with this at all. They were his brothers in arms. They suffered together, and she just does not give a flying hoot about them. Not a flying hoot. She just, she don't care. She only cares about him, which, again, from a mother's perspective, you can see why her only concern would be her son. But from a ethical doctor's perspective, you promised these people you could save them, and now you don't really give a crap. I know you bottle up the cure, but I don't feel like she was going to track them down and give it to them. She was talking about going on the run with Freckle. So doesn't feel like she actually gave a crap about them at all. I could be misreading that, but that's how it felt to me. And Silvermane is still building his Sinister Six, although I feel like it's going to end up being capped at 3, seeing as though when he got here, every other fucker is dead apparently, and in those weird tubes that the Doctor has been keeping. And they kind of look like Robot from Invincible. And I'm not talking like the robot body, and I'm not talking when he clones himself into Rex's body. I'm talking about Broody when he's in that little grotesque fetus baby form. They look like that. So, yeah, I don't think he's getting his 6. But hey ho, Ben has the cure. So hopefully he can cure them, and the 6 will, the 3 will be depowered, and Ben will, thingy. Now, obviously, I know the answer to that, but we'll get there when we get there. So, episode 7, Kat realizes she messed up, especially when Silvermane comes back and is like, we burnt the whole place down, which wasn't really him. These are where we get the hints that London is not really on board with anything that Silvermane is doing. When he was rescued, he killed the guy that was beating him up without being told he could do it, and Silvermane said that it was weird, but didn't really scold him. The factory where they were trying to get things, the Flint recognized Freckles as one of them, and that he'd been cured, and or could have figured out that he'd been cured, but London fried him and then burnt the place down. So at the end of the day, there were signs that Lyndon was unhinged or fried, spark joke, from the beginning. Meanwhile, Ben is just in his cope era and at a bar getting absolutely blottoed. And before getting in a bar fight, defending his honor as the Spider, because the guy is basically called the Spider a hack who couldn't even fight back in the day, let alone now. Silvermane's plan is a little underwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. Here, he has these 3 superpowered individuals. One is bulletproof, as far as he's aware. One is made of sand, so bullets just pass straight through him. And one can fry the power grid. And he has them collecting the mayor's campaign funds and distributing it. He also then has them steal his booze back and distributing it, all to get them to vote for this new mayor. It's a little underwhelming, and dude, why did you need superpowered individuals for that? You have guys with guns. Like, the superpowered individuals weren't really necessary for what you had planned here. Like, am I the only one? I feel like he brought in way too much muscle for what he actually had them do. But the reveal his assistant knew the whole time, Ben's assistant knew the whole time, is funny. And the little glimpses that we get of Nick Cage's like drunken rampages about being the Spider was just funny. About like how she walks in on him multiple times mid costume, and he's just like, the Spider's busy every time he's drunk. So basically she's known for years. That's hilarious to me. I do like him choosing to cure the others before choosing to cure himself. That feels like Spider-Man core to me as well. Others come first, great power and everything, and it feels like it is an echo of what Ruby and Left Behind and what Robbie has been saying to him throughout the entire series. I just hope that by the end of it, he realizes that he doesn't need the cure, and obviously we know where it leads, but I'm trying to be as vague as possible when it comes to the eighth episode until we get to that one. But then he goes to face Lonnie. And this fight goes about as well as you think it can, about someone that's been out of the game for a while and doesn't really know what they're doing. And Lonnie being this hulking individual who's strong and indestructible, he rips through the webs and then throws the spider about. The needle bends on his skin so it doesn't work and then shatters, and he tries again and drops it and then gets thrown about, and then Robbie comes in with the save, stabbing Lonnie in the eye, and he gets turned back. Now, I don't know if they really explain why the webbing runs out, but based on the fact that he needed like 3 cups of water in the hospital, and the fact that he's still got that the wound from the liver thing, imagining that it has something to do with the injury and the fluids, I do think that that should have been more explained with, because when he's fighting the cops and his webbing runs out and then he passes out, I don't think that that was explained enough as to why he like starts running on empty. It was cool and it meant that he wasn't overpowered, but I still think that we needed an explanation to like show us why. And then we get the cut that I was talking about, the brilliant, like, everyone's got a syringe and knows that they need Ben Reilly to track down the spider, and there's like the side cut of the mayor and Silvermane saying, "Get me Ben Reilly," and then just Ben as the spider laid on Robbie's bed. It was fun. And so the final setup strong enough where everyone's coming for him. I feel like it set it up strong, and I feel like it's going to be a banging final. And to me, I do think the final time and it delivers. I think it does deliver on what we want. We get Electro and Stanman, or Flint and London Layden, stalking him and trying to track him down by having his assistant on surveillance. They manage to, and then they bring him to Silvermane, where he is his usual snarky, sassy self, especially with Kat because she betrayed him. I do like that, and we get this whole interaction. Uh, Layden is the one to start recognizing that he knows Ben. To be honest, I wish it would have been Flint, because they've interacted multiple times now that it feels odd Flint hasn't recognized him, especially when it's pointed out to us that Flint is the one that held the guard and Freckles is the one that put the knife in. So that's pointed out to us in episode 6, and because of that, and they're the ones that saved Ben, so they would have got a good look at Ben's face. Once that's revealed, I wish it had have been Flint that started to remember after he saw Freckles and he sees Ben again. I wish it would have been him that starts putting the pieces together instead of Layden. But we get what we get and we don't get upset, as you always say, as people always say, I suppose. But that's just me. I think that it was okay that it was Layden, but I would have, as I said, preferred it to have been Flint. And as we start getting all of that, then he makes his phone call to the spider, and I think Robbie's impersonation of him or Nick Cage, it was really good. Although I have seen people say, and I do agree, that it came out very Nixon-y. So that was very clever. And then his identity is kind of revealed, and Kat does what Kat does. She kind of goes off and starts revealing everything, that she's the mole. She betrayed Silvermane because he has a gun on her, which bad move on Silvermane's part, by the way. So Silvermane pulling a gun on Kat is what switched Sandman on him. Because the thing is, Sandman would have fought Electro to tooth and nail for Silvermane because of how loyal he is. But the minute he pulled a gun on Cat, his loyalty shifted because Cat is his heart and soul. So the thing is, Silvermane buried himself the minute he did that. And yeah, then Robbie shows up as the Spider, gives this whole spiel. The assistant gets caught with the cure. The cure is then taken and injected into Robbie, so they think the Spider has no power. Ben reveals himself in front of everyone. So Flint now knows, London now knows, Silvermane now knows, Silvermane's goons now know. Obviously, the assistant knows, Cat knows, and Robbie knows. But everyone in that room now knows that Ben Reilly is the Spider. Risky move there. Hope it works out for you, dude. But that was a bit dumb in my opinion, as he starts saving everybody. It did also feel a bit odd that his powers just suddenly kicked back in, but hey ho, I suppose the life or death of your assistant is very important. And then he starts fighting them, switches into his suit, and it becomes really cool. Uh, the mirror scene between Cat and Silvermane was really incredible, and I absolutely love how they're all reflected off of each other. And when they're talking, she's like shattering the mirror, and as the mirror shatters, it like sort of shatters on screen. That was clever. It was very beautifully done, and to me, it was top tier. And then we get the fight between multiple villains, which consistently throughout Spider-Man history, Spider-Man 3, TISM 2, hasn't been the best. They don't do it well at all, usually. No offense, Sony, but you don't. You usually screw it up at the last minute. But I think this one actually worked out pretty well. I think you have it done really, really well, and have it handled really well. I like the smashing the buses together to get Flint out of the way so that he can deal with Electro. I like Flint switching up on us to save his girl Cat when Electro turns on her. I like Electro naming him Sandman, and I'm not sure I like that Layden goes by Megawatt instead of Electro. That's why I've been calling him Electro or Layden throughout the entire show. But hey ho, that's a bit of my own personal preference. And obviously, this all did start with the fire guy, which was the PI investigation from episode 1. It was a cool fight, and it does end with Ben throwing Electro into a train and him getting smushed by the train. But there is no body, and you know the old TV rule. No body, no death. I'm just saying we do not see his body. So is he dead? More than likely he got hit by a train, but when he got hit by a train, there was a big blast of electricity. So did he turn into energy and vanish? That could be a possibility. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, but the villains and everything, I think it was well balanced. And I do like the ending where he cures Flint rather than curing himself, turning Flint back to normal. Then they all go to Silvermane's funeral, and Cat walks over to him. says she would have left with him if it weren't for Flint, and he basically tells her, "Whatever you say, love," and she tells him to pee off. Uh, it was a good ending. I liked the whole scene with the desk as well, and the kid being like, "You had the lady, get us a good desk," and her joining the firm as part of the detective agency. This is the part I have trouble with when it comes to Robbie's character, and you can let me know down below if this would have been a thing. Would it have been possible for him to have created his own newspaper outlet in the 1930s, or not? Because we saw the stigma he was getting working at the Bugle. So I'm not sure how realistic that is. I know this is a TV show about a guy with spider powers. But it's just they leaned heavily into the racism of the time, and the realism of that. So I don't know if that stays true to what they were leaning into or not. And again, I'm no expert on this, clearly. So let me know if you think it does. But my final thoughts on the show as a whole is that I think the show works because it commits. It commits to what it's trying to do. It sets up the mystery really well by showing Addison with powers from the beginning, and it does it as a noir rather than a Spider-Man story. Spider-Man is just dressing on a noir detective show. That's what I like about it. It's a noir detective story, like a Murdoch Mysteries or something like that, with Spider-Man as your cherry on top. The Spider-Man stuff is secondary to the PI stuff. And I like that. I like Spider-Man's not overused. I like the fact that it's not that big of a deal when Spider-Man shows up. It's cool, but he's not in every single scene or used halfway through, and he only shows up sparingly throughout the show. Or at least that's the way I saw it. I do think that the black and white genuinely elevates the feel, and it makes you feel like you're watching a classic noir detective film or something akin to like Casablanca or anything like, not that it's on the level of Casablanca, but something akin to that style of movie or thing like film like that. I also love the fact that we don't get everything answered. So yes, we're told that Ruby died while he was drunk in a bar, and someone he put away killed her. But that's it. And oh yeah, and we're showing visuals of her drowning in her car while she's presumably, based on the scene he saw with Kat, handcuffed to the steering wheel. That's all we're told, though. We don't know who the guy was, why they did it, or anything like that. So that's more of a mystery that we could dive into and find out more about. There's still more open ends because I don't believe for one second that every POW died. There'll be still some out there that had nothing to do with the Doctor that might develop powers later on. Again, the fire didn't actually show the Doctor and her son die. We just saw them lay on the floor while the fire was burning around them. We never saw their bodies afterwards, so are they actually dead? Did the cure them or just stabilize their mutations like it did with Spider-Noir? So there are still things that we could be doing. Maybe they can reactivate their powers very similar to how Ben does. We wouldn't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I do think that this is one of the most unique Spider-Man projects we've had in years. I do wish we'd have got a bit more set up for season 2. Like I said, I liked the ending, but there wasn't much of a cliffhanger or anything to clearly indicate that we were getting a season 2, other than the fact that he webbed his hat at the end to show that he was back as the Spider. I feel like that's what that was hinting at. But besides that, or at least that he was comfortable with using his powers, or that he kept them. Something that it was hinting at there. But besides that, I, I don't think we got much of a hint as to what we were moving forward to. And I do hope that we do get a season 2 for this, or a movie, or anything like that, because I think, like I said, this is one of the best projects Sony has done with Spider-Man for years. And even if you're not the biggest Nick Cage fan, I know some nerds on the roundtable absolutely adore Nick Cage, and some nerds on the roundtable don't. I do think you'll enjoy this project. But with that being said, I'm going to call this video to an end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell if you haven't already. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and most of all, stay nerdy.